Okay. Hello everyone. Hello. Good morning and thanks for being on time. So I see that quite a number of you coming in. So good morning everyone. Thanks for joining us and thanks for being on time. Take a moment to settle in and I think we'll begin in one or two more the next one or two more the next two minutes or so. So I see that there's quite a number of you today. Very excited. So yeah, for those of you here who are here, can you all let me know in the chat if you all can see us and hear me clearly? Hello, DZ. Hello, Kuwat. Good morning. Can you all hear me? Let me know in the chat section. Let's keep this session very interactive. 170 of you here already. So interesting. 180. Okay, loud and clear. All right. So for those of you here, I have a very quick question for everyone. I just want to know how many of you are attending our webinar for the very first time. Let me know in the let me know your responses in the chat section. Okay, first time from Stephen. Okay, a lot of you are here first time. Okay, many of you are here for the first time. That's great. And then my next question is, how did you hear about us actually? Did you hear about us about this event through our social media, or did you get a referral from your friend, or someone forwarded this event to you through WhatsApp? Okay, social media referral, social media. Okay, mostly social media. Okay, LinkedIn, Telegram. Okay, interesting. From our ex account, Twitter. Okay, mostly social media. I see. All right, so I think we have quite a number of you here already today. So I think let's get started. Give me 1 second. All right, so good morning, everyone. Let's get started. So my name is Jia Ying. I'm from the Halogen Capital team, and I'm your host for today. So it's great to see everyone. Great to see everyone, and great to have all of you here today. And it's just I noticed it's also just 1 hour before your very precious lunch hour. So we'll make this very, very meaningful for all of you here today. Right. So okay, we're diving into a very hot topic, as you all can see on the screen. So which is crypto taxes. And some of you might have some questions brewing in your mind, which is, okay, what are some of the tax implications for your crypto investments in Malaysia? And on top of that, are there any very recent developments in the crypto taxation space in Malaysia that you as an investor should be aware of? And the fact that you're here, I think you're likely an investor already, or you're interested to get started to start investing in crypto. So maybe some of you have seen the price increase in the last few days, and that got you very excited. So yeah, stay excited because we have put together some very interesting insights for you. And of course, as you can see on the screen, I'm not alone today. I have two very wonderful speakers who will be here to address all of your questions regarding crypto and taxes. So yeah, let me introduce them a little bit. Let us get to know them a little bit more. So first, we have Hann. So Hann Liew, he's actually our founder and CEO here at Halogen Capital, so which is Malaysia's first licensed digital asset fund manager. And previously, he was from Jinexu, which is the parent company of a fintech, household fintech brand that I'm sure all of you know, which is Ringgit Plus, Malaysia's leading financial product comparison service. Pretty sure some of you have even used the service before. And besides that, he's also a certified financial planner and has helped thousands of Malaysians grow their wealth through traditional and digital assets. So that's a little bit about Hann for you. Then next in the list, we have Tien Yee. So Tien Yee over here, she's a tax partner at PwC Malaysia. So PwC is actually one of the largest global accounting firms. And then with her, she has over 20 years of experience. She specializes in tax compliance and advisory, focusing on corporate restructuring and tax optimization. So throughout her 20 years, she has a wide range of clients. So her clients include companies in the property field, in the financial services, manufacturing, trading, and service industries. So these are some of her experiences throughout her 20 years in PwC. So very, very experienced. Then that's a little bit about both of them for you. You'll definitely get to know more about them in our upcoming presentation. So I'm very excited to hear about their insights on our topic for today, as you can see on the screen, which is crypto taxes in Malaysia, what is taxable and what's not. So, Hann Tien Yee, you want to say hi to everyone?
Hello, good morning, everyone.
Hi, thanks, Jay. Morning, everyone. Han here.
Hello.
Hope,
Okay.
yep.
Yep. Okay. Morning, everyone. So, okay, that's a little bit about them. For you. So, all right. Before I pass the time to Han, for everyone's tuning in, do leave us your questions in the Q&A box, and then we'll attend to them in the Q&A session later. So, all right. Without further ado, I think Han, over to you.
Thanks, Jay. Morning, everyone. Han here. Hope everyone hears me fine. If you hear me fine, just give me a thumbs up. No need to spam the chat. Just show me a thumbs up if you hear me okay. If the sound is good, if it's too loud, too soft, let me know. I'm watching the chat, don't worry. Cool, thanks for the thumbs up. I'll get started. Hope everyone's excited for a great session of sharing. Thanks to Tien Yee for joining. You feel free to shut off your video if you don't really want to listen to me, but hopefully you do also. So what we're talking about today, as Jai mentioned, don't mind if I do the first 10, 15 minutes. I might take about 15 minutes to cover a bit on crypto investing, right, as well as a little on market outlook. And then I'll pass to Tien Yee to talk about tax matters, particularly around digital assets, both in the context of unit trust, so digital assets in unit trust, as well as digital asset, the overall industry, including not just investing and trading, but other stuff regarding the industry. So whether you're an investor, you're a miner, you're a trader, you actually take payment in digital assets, this might be a relevant session for you. And then at the end, if we have time, hopefully maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes of Q&A. We should be done by just afternoon, maybe 12, 15 or so. Try not to take up too much of your lunch. We'll get into some Q&A. Okay, cool. Jai mentioned this, but I'll go through anyway. Just a quick introduction on Halogen. We are Malaysia's first, and as of May 2024, still only SC licensed fund manager approved to offer both traditional and digital asset exposure. The SC's buying Negara's term for crypto is digital assets. So you hear me saying the word digital assets or crypto, or hear Tien Yee saying digital assets. It's Malaysia's term at least for crypto or tokens or cryptocurrencies here in Malaysia. But how is SC allowed to issue licenses for a crypto fund manager? How is that possible? Actually, they're able to do so because crypto or digital assets has had legal clarity in Malaysia here since 2019. In fact, 2019 is earlier than many other countries, right? And both the SC, so at the top there, as well as Bank Negara at the bottom there. In between there is the SC's Sharia Advisory Council, which is about Sharia prescription. But other than the Sharia stuff, both SC and Bank Negara agree that crypto, or they call it digital assets, are not really used as legal tender here in Malaysia, but have a use case which is an investable class of assets or securities, right? So just like equities or bonds in that way, and covered under the CMSA, Capital Markets and Services Act 2007. So we are quite, I don't say the word lucky, but in Malaysia, the legality has been clear for almost 5 years already, right? This is in fact much earlier than many other countries. So what does that mean to have a fund manager involved in crypto like Halogen? Well, the best way to explain is this slide. Well, as you know, for traditional assets like stocks or bonds, right? You have exchanges, right? So you have Bursa there, brokerages. So you've heard this from the names: M Plus Online, Rakuten, Mumu, CGS, CIMB, etc., etc. Where you can actively trade, buy, sell equities, right? Stocks on Bursa and stuff like that, and manage your own portfolio if you have the time and effort and expertise to do so. Alternatively, if you don't have the time, expertise, or attention or skills to do so, you have fund management companies. So you recognize some names: Public Mutual, Principal, Aham. The list goes on. ASB, right? These are fund management companies. They manage unit trusts, a pool investment on behalf of investors, right? So on the crypto side, the same parallel exists today now, right? And why I say that now, because over the last few years, you have been able to buy, sell, trade, self-manage on what we call digital asset exchanges here in Malaysia, DAX, DAX, and manage your own crypto portfolio if you have time. So you can buy and sell cryptos, Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc. If you have the time and expertise, you can go ahead, buy, sell, trade, etc. Alternatively, right? If you don't have the time or expertise, you can invest through a fund management company in unit trust structures or private account or private mandates, such as through us, Halogen. We are currently the only one still. We hope there will be more coming soon. Not because we like competition so much, but because we feel that this industry needs more players providing services in digital assets. So where is the crypto market today? The industry is best to describe as a firmly and investable class of assets, right? It's $2.3 trillion in market cap, right? This is comparable to probably the very largest stocks in the world today, the Apples, Microsofts of the world, right? Over 2 trillion. Larger than almost all other stocks, right? Apart from the top 3 or 4, right? And actually similar in market cap to commodities such as silver, right? It's about 10% the market cap of gold, so not quite at the gold level yet. But in terms of market cap and trading, global trading, it's not just similar to, but in many cases, similar to trading like silver in terms of market cap and trading volume. Bitcoin and Ethereum, the two largest cryptocurrencies, still dominate in obviously different ranges. Bitcoin's over 55%, so it's still highly concentrated in Bitcoin. Ethereum's under 17% now. So you can see there's been lots of growth in the last 10 years or so in the cryptocurrency space, right? 10 years ago, it was very, very nascent, very niche, very small. Today, it cannot be ignored. $2.3 trillion US dollars. That's 11 trillion ringgit. You cannot really ignore it anymore. But it's not just about prices or market cap going up and down. There is a firm investment case for crypto, right? In many cases, it started with Bitcoin, so I'll focus on those first. But there's two. I like to break down into two types of use cases, or rather two types of values, right? The first type is what we call utility, or you can call it fundamental value or utility value, whatever you want to call it. And the second type is investment value, right? Investment as a class, how does it behave? How should I treat it, right? So the first part is what do people actually use it for, right? What's the utility value? Second part is what is the investment value? How do I treat it as an investment, right? So let's go through the first part first, very quickly. For those of you here for the first time, hopefully this is useful. For those of you who might have heard me talk about this before, there are some developments, so hope you pay attention a little for the next few minutes. The first part about utility is that crypto is a digital payment network, right? What I mean by that is it's used by individuals, corporates, institutions to transfer value, specifically in this case, let's say it's Bitcoin, can transfer Bitcoins from one person or one entity to another entity globally, as long as they have the internet, settled within 10, 20 minutes or so, right? And when I mention something like this, right, it triggers a few things in your mind, hopefully. Things like, hey, look, that sounds similar to something like Visa or Amex or MasterCard, right? And for me, it's very, very far stretch to say that Visa, Amex, MasterCard have no value, right? They have a value. They connect individuals, businesses, entities to each other to transfer value, right? It's just that in this case, the crypto network, or in this case, the Bitcoin network, transfers Bitcoins between people, right? So, and Visa, Amex, MasterCard are like hundreds of billions of dollars of value in market cap. So what's to say that a globally competing payment network can't do that too? And in fact, one of the values to measure a global payment network is in its adoption. Adoption means people using, whether it's a people transferring from people to people, or businesses accepting, so people transferring from people to business or business to people. And what we're seeing is adoption has an uncanny resemblance to the adoption of the internet in the late 1990s. So if you look at this green line, right? This is the green line for the internet in 1990 to 2000, right? So you see early 1990 to 2000 there. And then you're seeing the dark blue line, all right, from 2014 to today, well, 2024 today already, and I can tell you it's very much tracking this line here, right? It's tracking the internet wars in the late 90s, right? And today, I don't need to tell you guys that all you canny investors, all you millionaires today out there have made a lot of money from the internet, hopefully over the last 5 years. But certainly, if you were invested 25 years ago, you would have reaped 10 times, 100 times returns investing in not specific companies, but overall internet-based companies, right? internet-based technology is the dominant sector in the global economy today, right? So again, investment value comes from utility value also, right? You think about what is people using it for, and what are the parallels I can draw, right, as a utility use case, right? Second major use case, probably don't have to explain too much, but I'll explain a little bit. Because of crypto and specifically Bitcoin's unique properties, right? It is scarce, it is liquid, it is decentralized, it is secure. The network actually has never been hacked, right? The Bitcoin network. It's Bitcoin companies or Bitcoin individuals have been hacked. The network itself, the Bitcoin network itself has never ever been hacked. And because of these properties, Bitcoin has been started to be seen as what we call store of value. Store of value means a real asset or something which you can use to put money in and it holds its value, right? Now, for emerging market investors, it's a bit easier to explain. If I was explaining this to a developed market investor, it's harder for them to understand because they don't see the kind of things that we do as an emerging market investor. Things like debasement of our monetary policy, depreciation of our currencies, forcing us to look elsewhere for as an investor, right? Like for us here in Malaysia, I'm expecting most of you are here in Malaysia or at least have some sort of interest in Malaysia in terms of taxation, in terms of cryptocurrency. Bitcoin is starting to be seen as an alternative store of value. Instead of just going, hey, look, buy some US dollars or buy some Sing dollars, or buy some gold or whatever, or buy some oil or whatever it is, I can also consider Bitcoin as a store of value. And we are seeing this play out globally, not just Malaysia, right? In big emerging market countries. I'm talking Argentina, Turkey, Pakistan, very large countries. And in those first two cases, very large economies, right? Much bigger than Malaysia. Yet they're seeing the same effects of a monetary debasement, rampant inflation, and needing a store of value. So I think, these two utilities alone give Bitcoin a lot of utility value, right? Why people use it for? There is a reason. These two are the big reasons. There are many more, including across the rest of the cryptocurrency space. Things like Ethereum smart contracts, alternative L1s, all that good stuff, which we have been covering in previous webinars, and we will cover in future webinars too. So please, follow us on social media. I think Jai will explain where our socials are, so you can keep abreast of developments, right, and see what's new in the crypto industry. But I guess most of you here, when you're talking about taxes, you are thinking in terms of an investor or a trader. So let's talk about the investment case for Bitcoin, right? What does it look like? There's a price, there are charts. What does it look like? Well, Bitcoin is best described as a high risk, high return asset, right? Crypto overall can be described as a high return, high risk asset class. What do I mean by high returns? Well, over the last year to date, it's about 50% year to date up. And even if you look, and there are ups and downs, but over the long term, you're looking somewhere between 50 to 60% return on an annualized basis. But with this kind of high return, 50% is really, really quite high. Comes the risk. What do I mean by risk, right? Volatility means prices going up and down, very volatile. That's what volatility means. 50% is the volatility of crypto in general as a whole, Bitcoin as well. And this compares to equities in the teens. So equities are like 15 to 20%. Bonds are 5 to 10, right? In terms of longer term bonds, right? So crypto is a very, very high return, but high risk asset class. You can see not just the volatility in the risk, but also drawdowns. But one thing that we do as, I guess, investment analysts or investment experts, or in my case, when I look at the financials of something, look at the analysis, I don't just look at risk and return. I also look at something called correlation, right? Especially correlation with all other asset classes, right? And what does correlation mean? Correlation means to what extent an asset class or a security moves in tandem with the others, right? In simple words, if equities go up, what does crypto do? If it's highly correlated, it also goes up. Likewise, if equities go down, crypto goes down equivalently. So what you want in a portfolio context is for things to be not so correlated from each other, because they go up over time. But in the short term, as things go up and down, you want one asset class to balance out the other, right? And keep your volatility of your portfolio low. So what we want is low correlation in our asset classes. And indeed, we do see low to negative correlation with Bitcoin with pretty much every other asset class. I'm not saying zero, I'm not saying high or low, but I'm just showing you the numbers, right? If you see a number 1 in correlation, right, that means is it moves up entirely in tandem, right? If you see -1, it means it moves completely opposite, right? And what you want is generally low, if not negative, right? And what we're seeing is, if you look at weekly returns of Bitcoin versus whether it's US equities, US tech, the NASDAQ, Malaysian equities, US bonds, the longer term 10-year treasury bonds, Malaysian bonds, right? Even the ringgit, right? Ringgit's US dollar or ringgit has price movements, as we all know. And things like gold and oil, what we're seeing, whether you're looking at weekly returns over a 3-month period, a 1-year period, or a 3-year period, whether they're short or long term, what we're seeing is that crypto, in this case Bitcoin, has very low, so certainly less than 1, and very much so. I think the highest that number I can see there is 0.4, and even sometimes in some cases negative correlation to many other asset classes. Negative means when something goes down, Bitcoin goes up, and vice versa, right? Which is very, very useful in a portfolio. So this is not our data, right? You can grab this data from anywhere one, whether it's Google Finance, Yahoo Finance, Bloomberg, whatever. You do the analysis yourself, you will find similar results. There might be times where it might be higher or lower correlation, but in general, you will see the top statement, low to negative correlation, to make sense. Right, you'll see that general statement making sense, and we see this in reality too, right? Can I control the slides? I've lost control. We see this in reality, right? What do you do with a what do you do if with a what are we doing? We're going back. Give me a second.
Sorry, give me a moment.
Jiaying, you're taking my slides.
Okay.
Right. I got it. Yeah, I got it. No worries. So as an investment analyst or a portfolio manager or portfolio constructor, what do you do with a 50% return, 50% volatility, a lowly correlated asset, right? Low to negative correlation. Well, the thing to do with this asset class is to stop speculating, right? But to start allocating long term, not speculating anymore in the short term. Why do I say that? Because whether you are a conservative investor on the left or an aggressive investor on the right, so conservative, you focus on deposits, you focus on things like very low volatility, low risk, low return, right? Or you're a high risk investor, right? You like things like the S&P 500, right? For me, right, the way to win in crypto is to do this, to allocate in the long term, right? And we're seeing this, whether you can have a lot of benefit with a couple of percent in crypto, even as a conservative investor about to retire or in retirement, you get a lot of extra returns for your retirement without much risk, right? And for an aggressive guy, it's I guess makes more sense there, right? Which is you get that 50% uplift, like the high returns from Bitcoin or crypto, and not that much more volatility. In some cases, even less, because it's low to negative correlation, if you remember. So that's kind of our thesis, why we believe that of how you should invest or how you should think about crypto, not so much as a trading vehicle anymore, like unless you have the expertise and time to trade. Think of it as a very superior asset class to be added in small parts to your existing portfolios, right? And I guess a lot of people are wondering, is now the right time though, right? What do I do, right? Well, what are the developments, right? We don't have that much time to go through everything today. So if you do give us a follow on X, Facebook, or Twitter or LinkedIn, right, we actually do regular market research updates, right? At least weekly, if not monthly, and for the quarter, as we do short and long term market updates. But I'll summarize the situation here today, right? As of mid-May, right? The Bitcoin halving has been done. It was done in April 20th. And currently Bitcoin is trading somewhere between 10 to 20% below its all-time high that was achieved pre-halving. And this is very typical. A lot of people ask me, hey, Han, I thought halving means it will go up. Well, this current short-term behavior is actually very typical of previous cycles, right? Previous halving cycles. And the reason for this is that miners have to readjust. So Bitcoin miners, the people who are mining Bitcoin, have to readjust based on their balance sheets and their profitability. And many of them who have older machines have to start selling Bitcoin, and that sell pressure adds to the market. If I'm an investor, though, I'm not a short-term trader, right? I'm a long-term investor, right? Focus on the long-term trend, right? As the supply has really just halved overnight since April 20th, In pretty much every single cycle the previous 3 cycles, like new all-time highs, right, have occurred within the last 6-12 months of the previous 3 halving cycles. So stick in it for long term, keep rebalancing, you will be fine, right? And I saw in the chat just now, Fed liquidity, right? The FOMC met in early May, and what we're hearing is more dovish signals from the Fed, the US Fed, followed by CPI, right? CPI inflation numbers being quite, what's the word to use? Not too high lah. It's elevated, but not surprisingly high. Causing a lot of breakout of risk assets. Bitcoin was not excluded, and there was momentum there lah. So that's why we saw it go from -20% of the all-time high to -10. It's now at about 66 to 60,000, 67,000 US per Bitcoin. Last development, I guess, in terms of the crypto market outlook is the Ethereum ETF. The deadline for Ethereum ETF approvals is actually this Thursday, right, 23rd, for one of the ETFs. We don't see the same enthusiasm from the regulator, SEC in the US, to summon those ETF issuers in for meetings and to revise their documents. And as a regulated entity, issuing funds in crypto, we know how important it is to have those meetings with the regulator, to do revision of documents, to really clarify what's in each line item. So we have a bit of insider knowledge there. But from what we can see, not that many discussions, right? And for us, that's why we think, it's highly unlikely that the Ethereum ETF will be approved this week. We think it's an eventuality. It will happen within the next months, or in a year or so, due to just the inevitability of due to the fact that the reasons for the Bitcoin ETF approval were, a significant correlation between Bitcoin futures and Bitcoin spot, and the same correlation exists for Ethereum futures ETF now versus Ethereum spot. So we're waiting and seeing for the rest of this week. We don't think it's going to happen. We might be surprised. Any productive meetings that we see could positively surprise and boost the Ethereum's prospects regards to the ETF. So that's it on the kind of market development. If you're curious about what we do at Halogen, Jai will cover this later. But we run crypto funds, right? Our flagship 3 funds: the Share Bitcoin Fund, which is spot Bitcoin in a fund, a unit trust essentially. The Ethereum Fund, the Share Ethereum Fund, with native Ethereum staking, so you get yield from the staking. And our about to be launched this week, if not next. We're still trying to dot the I's and cross the T's with the regulator and our custodian partners and the banks. We are launching the Sharia Crypto Titans Fund, if not this week, then next week. This is our another third flagship, a large cap basket of actively managed cryptocurrencies, including alts. And all 3 are Sharia compliant. All 3 are unit trust funds, wholesale unit trust funds. All 3 have next day liquidity, so you get your money back next day if you invest, no lockups. All 3 have 10,000 minimum investments. We also do private mandates, right? So for larger clients or larger ticket sizes, if you have specific needs, particularly if you need all your crypto assets in a little wrapper that we have, like a private mandate or so, and then we can seek a tax opinion from our partners here at PwC. We have those strategies, the private mandates, right? And then Tien Yee will have a look at it when we ask her to do so, and we get tax opinion from PwC on your behalf. Let us know. Speaking of PwC, wait, let me see. Just letting you know who allows us to spot our funds, right? We are highly supported by a Big Four auditor. We have PwC and Tien Yee's team directly advises us on the funds, right? We have Amani as a Sharia advisor, Universal Trustee as the trustee, and UOB as the custodian bank. All right. I had a question. Fund invest in Bitcoin ETF? No. We have spot Bitcoins and spot Ethereum and staked Ethereum in the funds itself. So that's kind of our partners. Speaking of PwC, I should say, we have a very special guest, Tien Yee, tax partner at PwC Malaysia. Just to FYI, Tien Yee and her team are tax advisors for all 3 of the flagship funds at Halogen since inception last year. So we've been working closely day to day on these unit trust funds together, these wholesale funds that are tax optimized, hopefully. I'll let Tien Yee share more. So Tien Yee and her team are probably the most knowledgeable in terms of tax compliance day to day for digital assets in Malaysia. So use this opportunity to pass to her. Glad to have you here, Tien Yee. Over to you.
Okay, thanks, Han. Hello, good morning, everyone. Yeah. So as introduced by Han, so I'm actually a tax partner with PwC Malaysia and actually been working together with Han and his team in respect of the tax matters. So today, I will actually be here sharing with you in terms of the crypto tax in Malaysia. And I guess the question in your mind is that what is taxable and what's not taxable, right? So I will be sharing in two separate sections. So the first section is to share with you in terms of the taxation of unit trust. So as Han shared earlier, their unit trust is actually primarily investing in the crypto assets, right? So of course, you'll also be interested to know then how would the unit trust be taxed? And the second part is more generally, right? If you do invest in digital assets in Malaysia, then what is the tax treatment? Okay. Now, so to start off with, in terms of the taxation of a unit trust, for those who are probably not, say, familiar with a unit trust, right? So another name for unit trust, as some people refer to it as a collective investment scheme. Of course, the legislation governing the taxation is under the Income Tax Act, and a very typical income of a unit trust fund is talking about your dividend, interest, capital gains, other incomes, as well as foreign income. Now, the tax rate of a unit trust is at 24%, but of course, the tax is only applicable for a taxable income of a unit trust fund. So later, I'll be sharing with you, in fact, unit trust industry in Malaysia is, I would say, very attractive in the sense that the government has been encouraging unit trust investment and have actually granted various exemptions to unit trust funds, right? So in terms of a unit trust, this is, as I said, is a collective investment scheme whereby all the unit holders, you pool together your investment in the unit trust fund for them to and give the mandate to unit trust to actually invest in the various investment assets, right? And from there, that is where, the investment assets will actually provide an investment returns to the unit trust, and the unit trust will then distribute it to the unit holders, right? In Malaysia, a unit trust fund is what we call as a tax transparent vehicle. So tax transparent vehicle means to say is that, whatever exemption that the unit trust enjoy, when they do a distribution to the unit holders will also enjoy the same exemption, right? Of course, on the flip side, if there are taxable income at unit trust, then when it is actually distributed up to the unit holders, it will also be taxable, but it will carry a tax credit, right? Then, of course, as a unit holder, sometimes you could invest in unit trust. You could also actually be having divestment or disposal, right? So generally, in Malaysia, later I'll also be sharing a little bit in terms of capital gains tax, right? So in Malaysia, generally, any gains that is realized by unit holders, other than if you are actually a dealer in securities, means you're actively trading, or your insurance company or financial institution, right? With the exception of these few categories, generally, the sale or redemption of the units are treated as capital gains, and it is not subject to tax in Malaysia. And how do you then, differentiate, am I actually trading or is this a capital gain? So that is where we assess using badges of trade, which I will share a little bit more later, right? Okay. So if we move on, as I mentioned earlier, right, unit trust industry in Malaysia is very attractive because they do actually enjoy various exemption in respect of the income that the unit trust derive. So generally, in terms of the exemption, you will see that there is actually dividends. Let's say unit trust actually derive dividends income from the Malaysian company, then essentially dividends are tax exempt, right? Now, if you actually look at number 2 here, as a unit trust fund, if they were to actually invest to derive interest income, means, for example, is that I actually purchase securities or bonds. It could be government guarantee. It could be those debentures, Islamic securities that is actually approved by Securities Commission and all. Then essentially the interest income that is actually derived will again also qualify for exemption at the unit trust level. Now, in terms of capital gains tax, right? So some of you may be familiar with capital gains tax because it was a very hot topic towards end of last year. So end of last year, Malaysia government actually announced that we will actually have capital gains tax regime. The good news is that for Malaysia, it is a little bit limited. So there's 2 main categories, right? One is actually in terms of capital gains tax on Malaysian unlisted shares. Another is actually on foreign capital gains tax, which I will cover later, right? So on the first part, right? So government has actually introduced capital gains tax on Malaysian unlisted shares. And if you actually look at it, a Malaysia entity, which in this case includes a trust, right? A unit trust, if they were to dispose of shares in an unlisted company, right? Then it will be subject to capital gains tax. So at what rate? Okay. So it depends on when was the shares actually acquired. It was acquired before 1st of January 2024. Then you have the option to choose the lower tax between a 10% tax CGT on net gains or 2% of the gross proceeds, right? But if these are shares that is acquired by the Malaysian entity from 1st of January 2024 onwards, then you have no option of flexibility. It's basically a 10% capital gains tax on the net gain, right? Now, notwithstanding that I put the acquisition date of January 2024, so just to share, as a transition, right, the government has actually also given exemption for 2 months period, which is from 1st of January 2024 to 29 February 2024, whereby even if let's say you have a disposal during this 2 months period, right, capital gains tax will not apply. Right. So technically, for this capital gains tax on unlisted shares, it will be effective from 1st of March 2024 with that exemption. Right. So you may be wondering then, so how does it then affect a unit trust, right? So for unit trust fund, Section 61 is the section that governs also one of the taxation of a unit trust fund, whereby previously it was actually indicated that under Section 61, any gains from realization of investments by a unit trust fund is capital in nature and it is not taxable, right? But with this change in terms of the CGT regime in Malaysia, they have now actually indicated that, if there's any gains from realization or investment in unlisted shares, it will be treated as an income. But hold that thought, because later I do have some updates to share with you. Okay. Second is that sometimes a unit trust fund, as I mentioned, may not invest in unlisted Malaysian shares, right? Most of the time, you actually invest in listed shares, or you could actually invest in redeemable preference shares, right? So then, if let's say again there is actually disposal based on these rules that you see in this page, it seems that capital gains tax will apply, right? As I mentioned, hold that thought. I will share some updates with you. Now, then the next recent development is in terms of foreign source income. Again, this is a hot topic for the past few years, right? So if some of you may recall, before 1st of January 2022, right, we have a very generous foreign source income exemption regime. Okay, so when I say generous, it means that Malaysia residents, right, whether it's a company or individual, when we actually bring in foreign source income into Malaysia, we don't have to pay any taxes. It is a blanket exemption, right? Now, subsequent to that, then they actually in 2022 they introduced taxes on foreign source income, but after some lobbying, the good news is that the government did actually grant certain tax exemption for foreign source income. So for individuals out there, you'll be happy to know that for all classes of foreign source income that you receive and you remit back into Malaysia, you will enjoy a 5-year exemption up to 31st December 2026, right? Where you actually invest overseas, you bring back the money, you still enjoy the same blanket exemption for 5 years, right? But for companies, right, corporates, let's say corporates, you actually invest in overseas and you derive returns, say foreign interest income and all this will be subject to tax, but the only exception is dividend, right? So for dividend, if certain conditions are met for companies that derive dividend income, they could still be exempted, right? So one thing I just want to mention at this point is that based on the foreign source income exemption that was announced in 2022, right? Actually, unit trusts will not be eligible for the exemption. Okay. So the current treatment is such a way that if you do remit in foreign source income and you actually have to tax it, but any foreign tax that's suffered, then you can claim a tax relief, which could eventually result in neutral, right? But again, hold that thought. As I mentioned, there's still some updates. And what is actually new is that effective 1st of January 2024 this year, right, they have expanded the scope of foreign source income. So the foreign source income now has been expanded to include any gain from disposal of foreign capital asset. So it could be any foreign capital asset. If you derive any gain and you remit it back into Malaysia, then you will be subject to income tax, right? But then there is also exemption granted, but exemption is actually given on the basis of economic substance. So economic substance means that if I am actually a company, I do actually have sufficient employees and I have operating expenses, means I'm not just a shell company, right? And I actually bring back such foreign capital gains into Malaysia, then I qualify for exemption. Means that I don't have to pay any tax on the foreign capital gains tax, even though I bring the money back into Malaysia, right? So again, from then a unit trust perspective, so I shared earlier that Section 61 has been amended in such a way that gains from the realization of your investment in foreign capital assets, you treat it as an income when it is received in Malaysia. Means you have to bring it to tax. And although there is exemption given on economic substance requirement, it will be challenging for a unit trust to meet it because they don't have any employees, right? So with this, it seems like, is it still good to invest in unit trust, right? Because now with this capital gains tax on unlisted shares, or it's actually foreign capital asset, does it mean then I have to pay tax, right? So that is where I think I wanted to share good news with you. Not to worry, because I think not just yourself, right? The unit trust industry has also been very concerned in terms of this development, in terms of how attractive will unit trust be if they actually have all these taxes that they have to pay, right? And so what happened is that on 16th of January this year, our finance minister too, Datuk Seri Amir, has actually announced that for the unit trust industry, okay, to actually maintain the attractiveness of the unit trust industry, they have actually granted or will be granting exemption in respect of capital gains tax from 1st of January 2024 to 31st December 2026. And in respect of the foreign source income that is derived from the unit by the unit trust fund, again, there's also an exemption from January 2024 to 31st December 2026. So this is the good news in terms of all the things that I mentioned earlier that is subject to tax, whether it did capital gains tax or foreign source income, both will actually enjoy exemption. Right. Just to take note that as at the date, as of today, right, the tax exemption order or guideline has not been issued yet, but this is actually a public announcement that was made by the finance minister too. Okay. Now, with this, I will just move on to the taxation of digital assets in Malaysia. Now, this is more a general concept of a taxation of digital asset, right? So, digital assets, I'll say that, has actually been quite prevalent, or actually, I'll say it's actually growing in the region as well as in Malaysia. And that's why the government actually felt that, there's a need then to clarify what exactly is then the tax treatment of a digital asset in Malaysia. So to this, they actually then issued a guideline sometime back in 2022 to then address then what exactly is the taxation basis for digital assets in Malaysia, right? Now, so the general tax treatment will then actually depends on whether that particular transaction, right? Let's say you're disposing your investments in crypto and you make a gain and all, do you actually need to tax it or not? So it depends on whether what you derive, is it considered a capital gains or it is actually a revenue gains, right? And how do you then decide whether it is actually capital or revenue? Right? So capital, as I mentioned earlier, Malaysia, although we do have capital gains tax, but it's very limited. It's only limited to, if we are actually looking at Malaysia investment, it's actually limited to the unlisted shares. If we're actually looking at in terms of foreign assets, so example, individuals, there is actually then exemption on foreign source income, right? Now, then when we actually look at revenue means that it's actually part of your trading activity. So if it's normal income for you, then it is taxable. That's why the distinction between capital and revenue is very important, because capital generally not subject to tax, but revenue, then you need to pay tax, right? Then from a tax perspective, right, usually how we determine whether a particular transaction is capital or revenue in nature, we have these badges of trade, which is actually derived from past case laws precedents, right? So things like its nature of subject matters, whether have you done supplementary work, what is the length of ownership. So example, of course, the shorter the ownership, the more it is inclined to be kind of trading. Frequency of transaction, the more frequent you actually transact, the more it is actually inclined for it to be revenue. Look at whether your motive, is it profit-seeking motive, and so on, right? So it is really depends on facts and circumstances of your investment for you to actually assess the badges of trade and then to determine, is this a capital return or is this a revenue return? Okay. Now, in terms of specific treatment for digital assets, right? So there are actually certain specific transaction that I can share with you today, just to give you a slightly better view in terms of which are those that will likely be taxable as revenue and which could potentially be capital gains, right? So for example, digital currency trading. If you're in a business that buy and sell digital currency as part of your ordinary course of business, right? Means you really actively buy and sell digital currency, then you will actually be taxed on profit derived because it is a trading activity to you. So it's no different from trading in stock. Let's say a physical store that is buying and selling stock, but in this case, what you're trading is a digital asset, right? Of course, any expense that you actually incur, because you are as if you're running a business, right? If you incur any expenses, then you will be able to claim a deduction, right? So what about mining of digital currencies? So mining of digital currencies, typically, if you're actually in mining, you actually do have a profit-seeking motive to mine. If you derive any fees and all those, then it's actually what you earn. You need to subtract it to tax. Now, but when it comes to taxability on gain on disposal of tokens, again, then we actually look at, is it capital or revenue? So how often do you actually have this disposal of this tokens and things? So again, it goes back to the batches of trade criteria that I shared earlier, right? And you could also have situation whereby, you actually, what is the accounting for digital currency in business transaction? So when I say using digital currency in business transaction, right? So example, today, when you actually have a sale, you say that I only receive in cash or bank transfer, right? Or when you actually pay your supplier for your expenses, you only pay in cash or bank transfer, right? So, but then going forward, let's say if there is a circumstances whereby we actually use digital assets more widely, yeah, and we start to see some of this currently as well, whereby they say, okay, instead of paying you cash, why don't I give you a digital currency, a Bitcoin or Ethereum that is equivalent to whatever goods and services that I'm supposed to pay for, right? So in these circumstances, then, from how you actually then account for your income and expenses will actually be based on whatever open market value. So if let's say I'm providing a services for 10,000 ringgit, they will actually give you, I believe, the digital currency in the equivalent, say 10,000 ringgit, and you just record it accordingly based on the market value, right? Okay. Then next, I will just cover, yeah. So in future, that could also be situation, hold on, let me just lost control. So can you help me to go to one slide earlier? So one slide earlier.
Sorry,
Can't seem to be able to control.
yeah.
Can't seem to be able to control. Yeah, 29, please.
This one?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So to continue on, right, there could also be circumstances whereby in future, who knows, maybe we could be getting our salaries and wages in digital currency as well, right? So of course, for businesses, if you actually use digital currency to pay your employees and all, salaries are deductible business expenses, right? Then for individual, if you actually receive your salary and wages in digital currency, of course, it's a taxable income for you as an employee. No different from today, you receive your salary in your bank account. But in this, you're actually receiving it in a digital currency, right? Now, what about investments, right? So if you actually invest in digital currency or there's other transaction on digital currency, then how? So again, it actually goes back to, are you actively, systematically doing this investment activity? If you are, then it is a business activity and it is what we call revenue in nature, right? So again, we go back to the concept of the batches of trade that I shared earlier. Okay. Now, last one is more in terms of acquisition and disposal of digital currency for goods and services. So then if you actually, now you're at the flip side, right? Digital currency, you use Bitcoin, Ethereum, you purchase just to actually pay your suppliers or, and things like that, then generally there's no taxation event because you imagine it's no different from foreign currency, right? Let's say you have a supplier that you need to pay in USD, you're probably going to buy USD to pay them, right? So I think this is actually what we talk about when we say there's actually no taxation because it is really a flow of a settlement. Yeah. Okay. So if we move on to the next one, which is actually my last slide here, is that then how exactly do you determine, right, for the acquisition cost of your digital currency? Okay, so then for taxation purposes, right, your valuation, Jayan, can you go back to the earlier slide 30? Yeah. So for valuation, it actually needs to be determined in ringgit, right? So then you actually require to value it in ringgit. You may actually be thinking, sometimes, right, I could actually be acquiring the digital currency in many different tranches at different timing, at different pricing, right? Then how do I then actually calculate the value when I actually say want to dispose or want to transfer it out, right? So they actually adopt what we call as a first in, first out principle. So acquisition cost is on FIFO principle, means that let's say you purchase the first 1,000 unit at this value, then the second 500 unit is another value. Whatever you acquire first is the one that first in, first out, right? And in terms of from a fair value perspective, let's say due to whatever reason, somehow, your acquisition cost cannot be determined, right? Then your digital currency that can be valued using fair value. So then what do we mean by fair value? So fair value is actually determined at the rate prevailing on the transaction day from acceptable and verifiable digital currency exchanges. So this is, I think, some pointers in terms of how do you actually determine the acquisition cost for digital currencies, right? So with this, I'll actually pass on to Jayan, to take over.
All right, okay, thank you so much, Han and Tien Yee. Give me a moment to get back to the slide. Wait for it's a bit. Okay, so thank you so much, Han and Tien Yee, for the very informative session. I see that there are a lot of questions piling in. So while I will let probably Han and Tien Yee to go through the questions a bit, but while they go through the questions a bit, let me introduce a little bit about what Halogen Capital does. So give me a moment. Okay, so if you have just heard about us for the first time, leave me a little time to just explain about what we do here at Halogen Capital. So who are we, right? If this is your first time hearing about us, we are actually the first licensed fund manager in Malaysia, aim to provide you exposure to digital assets, aka crypto. And adding to this, we are actually fully licensed and regulated by the Securities Commission Malaysia. You can actually find our license number located at the bottom of the slide for your reference. And then this is what we do in general as a digital asset fund manager here in Malaysia. And of course, if our earlier discussion by Han and Tien Yee piqued your interest in investing in crypto, here are some of our funds for you to get started with. So I think Han did share a little bit about our funds earlier, but let me share a little more just in case you missed it earlier just now. So as you can see on the list, we have a few funds, and then firstly, we have our flagship fund, which is the Halogen Sharia Bitcoin Fund. And then basically this fund provides you with a regulated and secure way to invest in Bitcoin. So it's very ideal if you see yourself in this for the long run, a long-term crypto investor. And then next in the list, we have our Halogen Sharia Ethereum Fund. So this fund is actually launched in January earlier this year, and as the name suggests, it actually invests directly in Ethereum, similar to our Bitcoin fund. But hear me out. What's the difference between the Bitcoin and Ethereum fund is that the Ethereum fund has the proof of stake feature, which allows you to earn the 3 to 4% range yield from the Ethereum network itself. And what's interesting about this is actually handled by us for you as well. So that's a little bit about our current flagship funds. Then of course we have another one in the list is our Halogen Sharia Ringgit Income Fund. Is actually a Malaysian an MYR denominated fixed income fund that's designed for liquidity storage and capital preservation. So if you don't prefer to take too much risk and you want something much more stable with a regular income, then this income fund aims to actually offer you as a better alternative to fixed deposits. And on top of this, we also have the T+1 liquidity function. So meaning you can actually turn your investment into cash in the next business day. So super flexible and ease of ease of access to your money. Then of course you can see the third one, the list is our Halogen Crypto Titans Fund. A little teaser here, we're actually we hope to launch this by the end of this week or end of this month. It is called the Halogen Sharia Crypto Titans Fund, and what this fund is all about is it is a multi-coin fund that actually invests in the largest cryptocurrencies in the market. So if you're the kind where you don't want to be, picking your coins, you want to be invested in the top coins in the market, then this could be your pick. So be on the lookout for this. We'll definitely share the news once it is launched on our socials. So, and then moving on to our fifth product, you can see the last one in the list, which is also a very interesting one. It's called our private mandates. So an example for you is, say if you have 100,000 ringgit, you want to diversify it between say Bitcoin, Ethereum, and maybe include some other altcoins in the mix, because why not? So this is where our private mandates service actually comes into play. This is basically where we can assist you in creating custom strategies tailored to your investment preferences. So this is in short what we offer here at Halogen Capital. And then if you're interested to learn more or you have questions for us about any of these funds, just leave it in the Q&A section and then we'll be answering them in a bit. But having said that, if you're ready to invest with us today, what you can do now, very, very simple, is that all you need to do is just to scan this QR code right on the that you can see on the screen, and then sign up for Halogen wallet account. It takes you probably less than 5 minutes. We are just asking you some simple questions, and then you can just get it done within 5 minutes. So that's what you can do if you're interested to get started with us. So that's a little bit. So in short, that's a little bit about us, what we do, what we offer, and how you can get started with us. So I'm just gonna leave this screen on while I navigate to our Q&A Q&A box. Okay, we have quite a number. We have over about 36. Okay, let me pick some. Wait a moment. Okay, I have one by Ken. May I know if we trade gold futures or US indices, do we have to pay tax or not? So maybe this is a quick one by Tien Yee.
Yeah. So I presume you're actually referring it from an individual perspective, right? So individual generally, when you actually do trade, including let's say you buy and sell shares on Bursa and all those, I would say government is fairly generous. They do feel that individuals, if you trade occasionally, you could actually be viewed as more capital gains rather than in trading. Yeah.
Okay, I think the next one would be by an anonymous attendee. Okay, what would the tax treatment be for an individual if, say, there's a gain in Ethereum and there's a loss in Bitcoin, assuming it is a net loss in this situation over a period of time?
So then this goes back to my earlier so-called badges of trade to say that firstly, you need to determine, is it your revenue transaction or is it a capital transaction? In fact, in the guideline that was issued by Inland Revenue for this digital currency, they did specifically mention that, okay, if you're an individual and you trade occasionally, right, then you can be viewed as capital gains and non-taxable. So what do we mean? If let's say you have capital gains and losses, right, then it is actually not taxable, not deductible. So in the long run, if you're saying that, it is your capital asset, even if you have a loss, then it's not deductible. But on the flip side, if you're saying that, hey, no, I don't just trade occasionally, I actively trade, you monitor, this is really your business, right? Then if it is assessed as trading in nature, then it will be taxable, or and any loss that you incur will be deductible.
Okay. Okay, I think this is an interesting one regarding airdrops. So I have a question by anonymous attendee. So regarding airdrops, where company reward users who test out their system in the forms of their tokens, will I be taxed if I convert the tokens back to my local bank account in ringgit, for example?
I guess then it depends on whether is it really your casual income or not, right? I mean, rightfully, the basic rule is that if you that actually earn income and all, it needs to be taxable unless it is what we call as a capital gains, right? But presumably here, I guess, company reward user, if this is outside Malaysia, because I think a lot of all these are generally outside Malaysia, right? Then what you receive is actually what we call is a foreign source income. So foreign source income, as I shared earlier, for individuals, you do actually have 5 years exemption up to 2026. So even if you bring money back into Malaysia, if it is a foreign source income, you will be exempted up to 2026.
Right, so hope that answered your question. So I think now we have some questions about Halogen itself. So maybe I'll direct this to Han. So it's some questions I think we can answer in a batch. So is crypto Sharia compliant? And who are our custodian for our funds here at Halogen?
Okay, good question. I think the word crypto is Sharia compliant is quite broad. So it's a bit like saying, is stocks Sharia compliant? Stocks itself can be Sharia compliant or not, depending on the nature, right? And so the best way to look at it is, I'm not the Sharia advisor, but in general, like if a Sharia advisor has reviewed specific cryptocurrency, its tokenomics, its white paper, etc., and deemed that, hey, look, there are no there's nothing in the way the token's been designed or released that is adverse to Sharia principles, then they can deem it as Sharia compliant. So in Malaysia, we have about 11, 12 cryptocurrencies which have gone through this review formally, both at the Sharia advisor level as well as the Sharia Advisory Council of the ST, to deem it best way to describe it as harus, which is it's not haram, it's harus. So, and that's the basis of which we form the Sharia compliant opinion, not just of these dozen or so cryptos, but also the fund itself, right? So you put Sharia compliance in the fund, Sharia compliant assets in the fund, and you construct the fund itself to be Sharia compliant, and then have it reviewed by a Sharia advisor, and then submit it to the SC. The SAC and the SD will review as well, right? So that's kind of the basis for Sharia compliance here in Malaysia. And then who's the custodian? It's multi-party custody. So multi-party means it's not a single person. It's not me. It's not our trustee Universal. It is not the bank UOB. It is not just BitGo and Fireblocks, all these guys. It is a combination. So we have multi-user, multi-institutional custody. So no one person has the key. But we use global and local guys.
Okay, a follow-up question to that. That's by Dr. Aswin. Is Halogen insured under PIDM?
We are not a bank, so as with any other fund management company, we are under the SIDREC program rather than PIDM. PIDM is for banks. SIDREC is for securities companies or the people in the capital market industry. I would say it's the exact same protection, similar protection, right? You got the same between 150,000 to 250,000 SIDREC protection. So that's more on the security side.
Okay, thanks, Han. So I think back to Tien Yee, I have another question. Okay, how and which form do I need to fill up if I were to declare my tax on crypto to LHDN? Then I think, I think that's the first question. Yes, that's the question.
Yeah. So if you have actually assessed that you need to pay tax on crypto, so chances are you probably will assess it to say that, hey, I'm actually in trading, so you're actually doing business, so you should actually report it under business income.
Okay, then, if I were to withdraw my profits / capital gains to my offshore account outside of Malaysia, do I still need to declare or pay tax in Malaysia?
Okay, so when you withdraw your profits and capital gains, right? So then, whether you actually withdraw to your onshore or offshore account, actually that is like where you park your money, right? So that doesn't really determine your tax treatment. The one that actually determines your tax treatment also depends on whether is it local or foreign. So let's say you're actually looking at local, right? If it is something that's derived from Malaysia and is not exempted, so even if you park it outside Malaysia, you will still be taxable event, right? But if let's say you invest overseas and you actually derive any amount and you park it outside in your overseas account and you don't bring into Malaysia, then you wouldn't be taxed, because for foreign source income, it is actually taxable upon remittance, right? But again, presumably you're actually looking at it again from an individual perspective. So individual, you do get exemption up to 2026 if you were to decide, let's say instead of an offshore account, you bring in your foreign source income into Malaysia.
Okay,
So
another one.
if it's exempted, you don't have to declare or pay taxes. Yeah.
Okay, does payment from Labuan company consider as foreign source income from Zafri?
You actually need to then look at Labuan, right? What sort of payment from Labuan? So because Labuan itself, when they actually remit payment out, it must be in a certain form. Form meaning you say, for example, is it a dividend income? It is an interest income and so on, right? So then for Labuan, there are certain exemption. So when you talk about, say, Labuan paying dividend to Malaysia or interest, there is a specific exemption for such amount. So it really depends on what do you you are actually distributing from Labuan to Malaysia.
Okay. Next question. What is the likelihood that a quantum computer could hack Bitcoin, and what would be the potential impact? I guess this is more to Han.
More to Han.
I love this question. Interesting question. I think at the moment, Bitcoin is secured using SHA-256. So you asked the question about quantum computing, so you know the encryption technology being used, and this is very common technology used, across many encryption. Many large institutions globally using SHA-256, right, to secure either their data or their funds or whatever it is. So you ask me like, if I had a quantum computer today, should I hack a specific Bitcoin wallet, let's say Michael Saylor's wallet, a few billion in there, or maybe I should go and hack Maybank. Maybank has hundreds of billions of ringgit of assets, or maybe I should go and hack HSBC in the UK or whatever. So the point here is, I believe the great thing about Bitcoin, unlike all these guys who maybe move a bit slower, is that the Bitcoin core developers, right, will likely see this ahead of time, right? And then the great thing about Bitcoin is that, right, the network itself is not safeguarded by anyone; it's safeguarded by the community, right? Developers, miners, etc., who will then, and they have done in the last 10 years, work together to I don't use the word fork, but to upgrade the network to defend against these kind of things. Whereas, for example, a network of global banks may not all move in concert to do that, leaving the ones who don't move in concert vulnerable to such an attack. So long story short, if I had a quantum computer which can do that, many other people to hack first, right? So I think it's not impossible, right? To hack SHA-256, right? But my bet, I'm not going to say this is going to happen or not. My bet is that the community will patch the network ahead of time.
Okay, then I think another follow-up to that. Any plan to issue alts ETF for higher risk funds or for higher risk portfolio than Bitcoin? Altcoins that already listed in Malaysia's CEX. Then
Yeah, good question. Yes, there are some people who want a higher risk than Bitcoin. So good for y'all. And the best way for me to describe it is right now in our roadmap we have the Sharia Crypto Titans Fund, which is a basket of all the altcoins, right? The top altcoins that you want, right? And we manage that basket to the objective of exceeding Bitcoin returns, right, with similar volatility, right? So hopefully that gives you a sense. If there's specific demand for a specific single coin fund, right, where be it Solana or Avalanche or Polygon or Cosmos or whichever it is, we will certainly consider it, right? But right now, how we express altcoin outperformance is through the Crypto Titans Fund.
okay, then I think for that question, there's another question in the chat by Office Dave about capital gains equals sell price minus buy price. I mean, how do I prove my purchase price if I hold crypto myself? Do I need to provide my blockchain transaction? Also, if I trade on a CX and also a DEX, how to prove the transaction date? Maybe this is for Tien Yee.
Yeah. So in terms of course, the expectation from inland revenue is that you need to actually maintain some documentation, right? So documentation in terms of if let's say you do all this online exchange, I'm sure there's at least some records to say that this is actually the value as at that particular date of that transaction, the exchange records, or maybe your wallet key, maybe bank statements and things like that. So it could be any document, so long as it can actually prove, let's say, okay, this is the date you transact at this particular value and all those. So I think inland revenue is fairly flexible in terms of so long as you have some level of documentation.
Okay. Okay, by Suki. So unit trust income is taxed 24%. What about if the company has a main source of business income? The unit trust income is taxed according to the business income or still remain at 24%?
Okay, so maybe just to clarify, the unit trust income tax at 24%, so it's only applicable for, say, taxable income, right? So let's say if they derive exempt dividend, exempt interest, or exempt capital gains tax, then all these essentially are not taxable. So if it's not taxable, then as a unit holder, when you receive the distribution, that is also not taxable. But let's say, if the unit trust actually do derive taxable income, and they actually pay tax at 24%, right? So what they do is that they will distribute to you net of tax, but then from the company's perspective, you still need to tax it on a gross basis, but whatever tax that the unit trust suffer, you can claim as your tax relief, or what we call as the double tax set off, right? Then if you are actually a company, so presumably you're also taxed at 24%, so essentially it should be fairly neutral in that sense.
Okay, I think we have a few more questions before we wrap up in, let's say, 5 more minutes. So I think there's one question by Office Dave on do we take in crypto deposits? I think this is more to Han.
Good question. For our public funds at the moment, we take deposits in ringgit, right? So you go from ringgit to crypto, that's fine. But naturally, like as I mentioned earlier, in Malaysia, crypto is considered a security, right? So since 2019, so for several of our internal private mandates, we are able to take a security as I wouldn't say the word deposit, but we're able to take your security and manage that security for you, right? So similar, if let's say I was a bond fund manager and you own some bonds and you say, hey, manage this fund for me, we can certainly do that. You can deposit your bonds with us and we'll manage. Likewise, if you had a bunch of equities, you're tired of managing yourself, right? You could just pass that to us. Right now, we do that through our private mandates. We don't right now have a crypto share class deposit. We are working on that for the public funds. So we do that. So long story short, yes, for our private mandates. For our public fund, working on a crypto share class to do that.
Okay, and I think another
But not
question.
yet.
Another question that I think a lot would want to know is what's the difference between us buying a spot Bitcoin ETF versus a Halogen fund? Yes, by Suki.
Okay. Okay, good question. Maybe Kenny can add later, but I'll add some first. Kenny can add later in terms of the tax. At the moment, most of the spot Bitcoin ETFs are either in America, so US, listed in US, so US dollar based, or in Hong Kong. So Hong Kong is still US dollar based in Hong Kong, I think, but I think they do have Hong Kong share class. In Malaysia, we are ringgit based. So the first thing is that it is a foreign asset, right? And then all the foreign asset rules apply, right? You will heard Kenny mention around foreign source income. There's a relief fund right now, but then obviously if it's a foreign asset, the tax treatment is different, whether it's capital gain or income gain. It's slightly different from if it was a local asset. So I think that's the first thing to note. We enjoy a lot of the exemptions that Kenny mentioned earlier, being the local asset. So that's the first. Second is naturally we have Malaysia hours, so you can buy and sell here in Malaysian hours, right? So we close at 5 p.m. here rather than 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. So trading hours, if you want to trade closer to when you're awake, we're based here. Or you want to invest when you're awake rather than put an order for overnight. And then there's a couple more. We are Sharia compliant if that matters to you, right? Those US ETFs, while I'm sure some Sharia advisors will look at that, ultimately, even though the asset itself is deemed Sharia compliant, the wrapper or the ETF in that sense may have elements of riba inside, right? So for example, if it's a US dollar bank account with interest as the custodian bank on the bank side for onboarding investors with interest there, that's certainly not Sharia compliant, right? It doesn't matter what you say, right? Once you have interest on US dollars, it's not Sharia compliant anymore. It's no longer a profit on ringgit, for example, right? So there's a few others. There's a few differences. Not to mention things like liquidity, bid ask, whereas we trade at NAV, so one price, right? You don't have a price, you don't have fee to go left or right. There's no bid ask spread on our funds. It's a single NAV that you enter in. So there's a few more, but I'll just share those with you. I don't know if anyone add anything on foreign asset versus local asset, or I covered it. I'm not sure.
I think you've covered it very well. So Han, you're also half a tax expert here already. Yeah, but essentially it is, as I mentioned, because unit trust fund in Malaysia is a tax transparent vehicle, right? So essentially, whatever exemption that the unit trust enjoy, it will flow to the unit holders.
Okay, I think we probably have one last question. I think it's about funds. So how transparent are the fund prices? I mean, at Halogen Capital, and any real-time price charts for investors like us? Do you update the prices daily? I think this will be the last question that we can take in for today.
Okay, good question. We do exactly what we state on our prospectus or information memorandum, in our case maybe, which is we value the fund daily, right? There's a valuation policy which has been reviewed by the SC. It's been reviewed by everyone, like including our Share advisor, even Tien Yee's team and auditors and our trustee, right? That we have to value the fund at 5 p.m. on the every day. So we do have a daily NAV, just like every other unit trust out there, right? And that allows us to have that daily T+1 liquidity. So you can subscribe or redeem units on a daily basis. And our fund prices are available online. Maybe Jai, you want to add where it is? I don't know. The specific link. But so you can see it's public, it's transparent. You can download all our fund documents. We have fact sheets, we have fund reporting, we have eventually our audited reports, audited by EY, etc., all on our website, halogen.my.
Yes, actually you can check out all of our prices on our website, and then I've left the link in the chat section there. Then anything you can just head on to our website and get all the details about funds and etc. So, but right now, if you're interested to get started, just scan this QR code, and then you'll be directed to set up a Halogen wallet account with us, and you can get started then. So thank you so much everyone for all of your questions. I know we still have a lot, but I think due to time constraint, we are unable to answer them all. But we will be sure to check them out, and then maybe bring forward compile all these questions, and then bring this forward to our next webinar. So don't be rest assured on that. If you have more questions, just reach us on our socials as stated on the screen. So we are on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook, we're on X and things like that. So just leave us your questions there, and we'll be more than happy to assist you if you have any questions regarding our services and our funds. So thank you so much everyone. I see that there's still about 200 of you all here right now. Thank you so much everyone for joining us and for staying until now. And then we're very grateful for all of you that took your time out of a Monday to attend this webinar. So if you have any questions, like I mentioned, just reach out to us on our socials, and then we'll be sure to get all of your questions answered in our next session. So I think any last words from Tien Yee, Han, anything you want to share before we wrap up the session? We're good.
No, I think I'm good. Yeah. Thanks everyone for attending this session.
Yeah, just one from me, which is thanks Tien Yee for coming again. Jane, thanks for organizing this. Like, if you guys really have issues with tax for your crypto, you say, hey, look, I need some institution to help you. And we're happy to help. And then if we need to bring in Tien Yee's team to come advise further, we're happy to do so. So feel free to reach us. You go, hey Han, I've got this portfolio, I'm trading this. Can you all help me? We can certainly help you from the portfolio management or trading point of view. And then if you find that, hey, look, how about the tax treatment? We will certainly ask Tien Yee's team to come in and help as well, as that's part of their responsibility, or rather their engagement with us as our tax advisors. So let us know.
Yep, I think that's all from us for today. So thank you so much everyone for joining, and then we'll see you in our next webinar. Bye everyone. We will be sure to send out the recording via email in a few days, so don't worry about that. Bye everyone. Thank you. Enjoy your lunch. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye everyone. Bye Tien Yee. Bye Han. Thanks. Bye bye.